The silence of the house was the first thing that hit me. It was wrong. It was heavy. Usually, the moment my key turned in the lock, there would be the frantic, rhythmic tapping of nails on hardwood floors, followed by a happy yelp and the warm, furry weight of Bella jumping against my shins. "Bella?" I called out, dropping my purse on the entry table. "Belle, baby, I'm home." Nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator, and the faint sound of the TV from the living room. Panic, cold and sharp, pricked at the back of my neck. Bella was a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, a rescue I'd adopted right after my divorce finalized. She was timid, terrified of loud noises, and absolutely glued to my side. She never hid. She never ran off. I walked into the kitchen, and my stomach dropped. The back door was wide open. The screen door was unlatched, swinging slightly in the evening breeze. "Bella!" I screamed, running to the threshold. The backyard was empty. Just the manicured lawn and the high fence. I spun around and ran into the living room. There, sprawled on my recliner, feet up on the coffee table, was my older brother, Brandon. He was eating a slice of pizza, his eyes glued to a football game. "Where is she?" I demanded, my breath coming in short, jagged gasps. "Brandon, where is Bella?" He didn't even look away from the screen. He took a slow, deliberate bite of the pepperoni slice, chewing with his mouth open. "Relax, Angela. You're blocking the view." The back door was wide open. "Where is my dog?" He shrugged, wiping grease onto his jeans. "I don't know. I went out for a smoke earlier. Maybe she slipped out. She's a dumb dog, probably saw a squirrel or something." "She's not a dumb dog. She's terrified of the outdoors unless I'm with her." I felt the tears hot behind my eyes, but I forced them back. I grabbed the remote and turned off the TV. "Hey!" He sat up, glaring at me. "Get up," I hissed. "Get up and help me look for her." Brandon let out a dramatic sigh, the kind he used to do when we were teenagers and Mom asked him to take out the trash. "Chill out. She probably just wandered down the street. It's a dog, not a kid. You treat that thing like it's the heir to a royal inheritance or something." I looked at him, really looked at him. He was wearing a new jacket, leather, looked expensive. And on his wrist, catching the light from the hallway lamp, was a watch. A Rolex. Gold and silver with a deep blue face. I froze. Brandon had been crashing on my couch for 3 weeks because he claimed his real estate investments were tied up in escrow and he couldn't make rent. He'd borrowed $200 from me yesterday for groceries. "Where did you get that watch?" I asked, my voice trembling. He instinctively covered his wrist with his other hand, then realized how guilty that looked and dropped it. "It's a replica. High quality. A buddy gave it to me." "Look, are we looking for the mutt or are you engaging in a fashion critique?" I didn't have time to argue about his finances. I didn't have time to process the sick feeling in my gut that told me something was incredibly wrong. I turned and ran out the front door. "Bella. Bella." I spent the next 4 hours scouring the neighborhood. I knocked on every door within a 5-block radius. I crawled under parked cars, shining my flashlight into storm drains, praying I wouldn't see reflecting eyes staring back at me in pain. My neighbor, Mrs. Gable, was watering her porch plants when I ran past for the 3rd time. "Angela, dear," she called out. "Mrs. Gable, have you seen Bella?" "Please, she's gone." "Oh, honey, no. I haven't seen her. But I did see your brother earlier. About 2 hours before you got home." I stopped, gripping her picket fence. "You saw Brandon? Was Bella with him?" "No," she squinted, thinking. "He was carrying a crate. You know, one of those plastic travel ones. He loaded it into a truck." My heart hammered against my ribs. A truck. What kind of truck? An old blue pickup. It looked like your father's truck, actually. But I couldn't see the driver. I just thought he was taking something to storage for you. I felt the blood drain from my face. My father's truck. I ran back to my house. Brandon was gone. His bag was gone from the guest room. The pizza box was left open on the coffee table, crust scattered on the floor. I sank to my knees in the middle of the living room. The silence wasn't just heavy anymore, it was suffocating. Bella wasn't lost. She hadn't chased a squirrel. She had been taken. The next morning, the sun rose, but my world remained dark. I hadn't slept. I had spent the night printing flyers, my printer groaning under the strain, spitting out hundreds of black and white photos of Bella's sweet face. Lost dog. Reward. Needs medication. She didn't really need medication, but I knew people were more likely to return a sick dog than a healthy, valuable purebred. At 8 a.m., my parents' car pulled into the driveway. I watched through the blinds as my mother, Linda, checked her makeup in the rearview mirror before stepping out. My father, Robert, lumbered out of the driver's side. He wasn't driving the blue truck today. He was in their sedan. I opened the door before they could knock. "Where is she?" I asked, my voice raspy from screaming Bella's name all night. "Hello to you too, Angela," my mother said, pushing past me into the house. She looked around the living room, wrinkling her nose at the stack of flyers on the table. "You look terrible. Have you slept? Did you take Bella?" I turned to my father. "Mrs. Gable saw a blue truck yesterday. She saw Brandon put a crate in it." My father laughed, a dry, dismissive sound. "Mrs. Gable needs cataract surgery, Angela. You know that old bat is half-blind. I was at the lodge all day yesterday playing cards." "And Brandon?" I pressed. "He's gone. He left right after I confronted him about the open door." "Brandon called us," Mom said, sitting down on the sofa, the same spot where Brandon had eaten his pizza. She smoothed her skirt. "He said you were hysterical. He said you attacked him over an accident." "An accident?" I felt a vein throb in my temple. "The door didn't open itself, Mom." "And where did he get a Rolex?" "He told me he was broke." "Oh, stop it," Mom waved her hand dismissively. "You know your brother. He buys knockoffs to look professional for his clients. He's in real estate, Angela. Image is everything. He can't look like a failure just because you're jealous." "Jealous?" I choked out a laugh. "I own my own business. I pay my own mortgage. He was sleeping on my couch." "He's going through a rough patch," Dad grunted. "Family helps family. But you always keep score, don't you? Just like with the divorce. You couldn't just let things go." That stung. They knew exactly where to hit. My divorce had been brutal, leaving me emotionally raw, and Bella had been the only thing that kept me from sinking into a deep depression. "This isn't about me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is about Bella. She is my family. If Brandon did something to her..." "Stop accusing your brother." Mom snapped, her voice suddenly sharp. "It's a dog, Angela." "A dog? You're acting like he kidnapped a child. Maybe if you focused this much energy on finding a husband instead of obsessing over an animal, you wouldn't be so lonely." Gaslighting. It was their native language. For years I had been the provider, the one who fixed things, the one who loaned money that was never paid back. Brandon was the golden child, the dreamer who just needed one more chance. "I'm filing a police report," I said quietly. The room went deadly silent. My father's face turned a shade of red I associated with his high blood pressure. "You will do no such thing," he growled. "You want to drag the police into this? Over a mutt? You want to embarrass this family? Brandon has a reputation. So do I said. My reputation is that I don't let people walk all over me anymore. If you call the police, Mom stood up, her eyes cold, don't expect us to come to Sunday dinner. Don't expect us to be there when you inevitably crash and burn. You're being selfish, Angela. Cruel and selfish. They stormed out. I watched them go, feeling a strange mixture of sorrow and clarity. They didn't care. They didn't care about my pain. They didn't care about Bella. They only cared about protecting Brandon. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from an unknown number. I saw your flyer at the grocery store. I don't know if this helps, but I live 2 streets over. I have a Ring doorbell. Yesterday at 4:30 p.m., a blue Ford pickup drove past my house. There was a crate in the back. The license plate was muddy, but I got a partial, KJL7. I froze. My father's truck was a blue Ford. His plate started with KJL. The tears finally stopped. The sadness evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard knot in my stomach. They had lied to my face. They had looked me in the eye and lied. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was a woman with a partial license plate, and a heart full of rage. I needed proof. Hard, undeniable proof. My parents could talk their way out of a neighbor's blurry vision, or a partial license plate. They would say Dad lent the truck to a friend, or that Brandon was moving his own stuff. I needed to know exactly where Bella was. I drove to Sarah's house. Sarah had been my best friend since college. She worked in cybersecurity, the kind of job she couldn't talk about in detail, but I knew she could find things that people thought were hidden. You look like hell, Sarah said as she opened the door, pulling me into a hug. They took her, Sarah. Brandon took her, and my parents are covering for him. I explained everything, the Rolex, the truck, the gaslighting. Sarah's face hardened. She cracked her knuckles. Okay. Let's go fishing. We sat in her home office, surrounded by monitors. You said Brandon was staying with you? Sarah asked. Yeah. For 3 weeks. Did he use your Wi-Fi? Yes. Did he use any of your devices? I thought back. He used my old iPad a few times. He said his phone screen was cracked. Do you have the iPad? It's in my bag. I pulled it out. Sarah plugged it into her computer. Most people are lazy, Ong. They log into apps and never log out, especially on family devices because they feel safe. Let's see what Mr. Real Estate Mogul has been up to. She worked in silence for a few minutes, typing commands that scrolled rapidly down the screen. Okay, she said. He logged out of Facebook and Instagram. But. She grinned, a predatory smile. He forgot about the cloud. He signed into his Apple ID to download a game, and it synced his iMessages. My heart pounded. Can we read them? We're reading them right now. She pulled up a window. The messages were a stream of chaos, debts owed to bookies, desperate pleas to ex-girlfriends, and lies to our parents about job interviews. Scroll to yesterday, I said, leaning over her shoulder. There it was. 4:15 p.m. Just 15 minutes before Mrs. Gable saw him. Brandon, got the inventory. It's a CKCS. Female. Prime breeding age. Purebred, no papers but looks show quality. My stomach churned. Inventory. He called Bella inventory. A reply came from a contact saved only as the farm pics. Brandon had sent a photo. It was Bella. She was in the crate, looking up with wide, terrified eyes. I had to cover my mouth to stop a scream from escaping. The farm, she's small. Good color. $500. Bring her in. Brandon, you kidding? She's worth $2K easy. I need cash fast. I got a guy for the watch lined up. The farm, 500 is the rate for undocumented intake. Take it or leave it. You know where to drop the package. The usual spot. Brandon, fine. I'm en route. Dad's truck is running hot, I might be 10 minutes late. Oh my God, Sarah whispered. He sold her for $500. A Cavalier is worth 5 times that. He sold her for a down payment on a fake Rolex, I said, my voice shaking with fury. Can you trace the farm? Sarah clicked on the contact info. It's a burner phone. No GPS. She bit her lip. Wait. Look at the metadata on the photo he sent. She ran a quick script. Okay, the photo doesn't help with the destination, but look at this later text. At 6 p.m., Brandon sent another message to the farm dropped at the south barn. Gate code was changed. Had to hop the fence. The farm, yeah, we changed it to 7,789. Don't forget next time. South barn, Sarah mused. And a gate code. That implies a secure facility. She started cross-referencing Brandon's phone location history, which had been passively tracking in the background of the iPad. Got him, she said. At 5:45 p.m. yesterday, his location pinged off a cell tower in Oakhaven County. It's a rural area. Pretty desolate. She zoomed in on the map. There's an old agricultural complex out there. Registered to a shell company called Green Acres Holdings. It looks abandoned on satellite view. I looked at the map. It was about a 2-hour drive. I'm going, I said, standing up. Not alone you're not, Sarah said. That place is in the middle of nowhere. If they are buying stolen dogs, they aren't nice people. I can't wait for the police, Sarah. You know they won't prioritize a civil dispute over a dog. By the time they get a warrant, Bella could be gone. Sold again. Or worse. Then take this. Sarah opened a drawer and pulled out a high-voltage taser and a pepper spray canister. And keep your phone on location sharing. If you stop moving for more than 10 minutes, I'm calling 911. I took the weapons. They felt heavy in my hands, heavier than the salary checks I used to sign over to Brandon to cover his debts. I'm bringing her home, I said. Bring him down, Angela, Sarah said fiercely. Bring them all down. The drive to Oakhaven County was a blur of dark highways and twisted trees. It was nearing midnight when I turned off the paved road onto a gravel track that the GPS claimed was the driveway to Green Acres. I killed my headlights about half a mile out. The moon was obscured by clouds, making the darkness absolute. I parked my car behind a cluster of overgrown bushes, pulling my black hoodie up over my head. The air smelled wrong here. Even from this distance, there was a faint, acrid scent carried on the wind. Ammonia. And something muskier. Fear. I moved on foot, clutching the taser in one pocket and my phone in the other. The south barn Sarah had identified was a massive, corrugated metal structure, rusted and looming against the night sky. There were no lights on the outside, but faint slivers of yellow light escaped from covered windows near the roof. I reached the perimeter fence. It was chain link, topped with barbed wire. I found the keypad Brandon had mentioned. I punched in 7-7-8-9. The lock clicked with a loud mechanical thud that sounded like a gunshot in the silence. I froze, waiting for shouting or guard dogs. Nothing. Just the wind. I slipped inside and crept toward the barn. The smell was overpowering now, urine, feces, and wet fur. It made my eyes water. I found a side door that was slightly ajar. I squeezed through, stepping into a dimly lit corridor. The noise hit me instantly. It wasn't loud barking, it was a low, constant whimper. A chorus of misery. I peeked around the corner into the main area of the barn. I had to bite my knuckle to stop from screaming. Rows upon rows of wire cages were stacked 3 high. The cages were small, intended for rabbits or chickens, not dogs. But inside them were hundreds of dogs. French bulldogs, golden retrievers, poodles, and spaniels. They were filthy. Mats of fur hung off them. Some were lying in their own waste. There were no blankets, no toys, just wire floors that must have been cutting into their paw pads. This wasn't just a place where stolen dogs were sold. This was a puppy mill. A high-volume, illegal breeding ground. I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I hit record. "I'm inside," I whispered to the camera, panning across the rows of suffering eyes. It's a concentration camp for dogs." I moved down the aisle, scanning every cage. "Bella? Bella?" I whispered. A few dogs thumped their tails weakly. Most just stared with dead, glazed eyes. Then, from the bottom row near the back, I heard a small, sharp yip. I ran over. There, in a cage barely big enough for her to turn around, was Bella. She looked small and broken. Her beautiful ears were matted with mud. She was pressing herself against the back of the cage, shivering violently. "Bella," I choked out. I fell to my knees. "Mommy's here. I'm here." She crawled forward, licking my fingers through the wire mesh. I fumbled with the latch. It was padlocked. "No, no, no," I wept quietly. I looked around for something to break the lock with. A metal bar, a rock, anything. Suddenly, headlights swept across the high windows of the barn. The sound of a heavy engine roared outside, a diesel engine. A truck was pulling up. Panic seized me. I couldn't get the lock open. If I stayed, they would catch me. If they caught me, nobody would save Bella. "I'll come back," I promised her, pressing my forehead to the wire. "I swear to God, Bella, I will come back for you." I scrambled away from the cages, looking for a hiding spot. There was a loft area above the office at the front of the barn, filled with hay bales. I climbed the ladder just as the heavy rolling door of the barn began to creak open. I buried myself in the hay, peering through a gap in the floorboards. I had a bird's-eye view of the entrance. The truck backed in. It was a large transport truck, not my dad's pickup. 2 men jumped out of the cab. "All right, let's get this load moving," one voice boomed. "The buyer in Chicago is waiting." Yeah. "Where is the inventory list?" "The boss is bringing it." "She's in the car behind us." A sleek black sedan pulled in behind the truck. The driver's door opened. I held my breath, pointing my phone camera through the gap in the floorboards to record the faces of these monsters. But when the figure stepped into the light, my breath didn't just hold, it stopped. It wasn't a stranger. It was my mother. The world tilted on its axis. I blinked, sure that the fumes in the barn were causing hallucinations. But the image remained sharp and undeniable on my phone screen. My mother, Linda, stood in the center of this house of horrors. She wasn't wearing her usual floral Sunday dress. She was wearing a sharp gray pantsuit, holding a thick clipboard. She looked authoritative, cold, and efficient. "Robert, get the lift moving," she barked. "We're behind schedule. The Chicago shipment needs to leave in 20 minutes. My father, Robert, stepped out of the passenger side of the sedan. My father, who claimed his back hurt too much to mow the lawn, who claimed he was too old to help me move into my apartment after the divorce. He jogged over to the truck, looking spry and energetic, and began lowering the hydraulic lift gate. "I'm on it, Linda," he said. "Are the vet records forged yet?" "I finished them this morning," Mom replied, flipping through pages on her clipboard. "The Frenchies are marked as homebred, and the spaniel Brandon brought in yesterday, the one Angela was whining about, needs to go to the St. Louis breeder. She has good genes. We can get 3 litters out of her before she crashes." I clapped a hand over my mouth to stifle a sob that felt like it would tear my throat apart. She has good genes. We can get 3 litters out of her before she crashes. My mother. My mother was talking about my dog, my emotional lifeline, like she was a disposable piece of machinery. And suddenly, pieces of my life started clicking into place. Terrible, jagged pieces. The way my parents always had money for cruises and new cars, despite Dad being retired on a small pension. The way Brandon always had investors bail him out of trouble. The way they were always so dismissive of my job as a vet tech, telling me I was wasting my time saving animals that didn't matter. They weren't just enabling Brandon. They were employing him. Brandon wasn't the black sheep. He was the runner. Dad was logistics. Mom was the brains. It was a family business. And I was the only one not on the payroll. "Hey, Linda," one of the truck drivers called out. "This corgi in crate 4 is looking sick." "Parvo, maybe." Mom didn't even look up. "If it's parvo, put it in the incinerator room. We can't risk infecting the stock. Write it off as a loss." "But it's still alive," the driver said, sounding hesitant. Did I stutter? Mom looked at him, her eyes hard as flint. "We aren't running a charity here, Mike. Get rid of it. And wash your hands before you touch the poodles." I felt bile rise in my throat. I wanted to jump down there. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear them apart with my bare hands. The taser in my pocket felt hot against my leg. But a cold, terrifying clarity washed over me. This is what people call the snap. If I jumped down now, what would happen? My father was stronger than me. The truck drivers were huge. They would overpower me. And then what? I'd disappear. Just like the dogs. They would throw me in the incinerator room and say I ran away due to depression. I looked at Bella's cage. She was curled in a tight ball. "I can't save you tonight," I thought, tears streaming silently down my face. "If I try, we both die. But I promise you, I am going to burn this whole world down around them." I needed to be smart. I needed to be Angela the survivor, not Angela the victim. I kept recording. I recorded for 10 solid minutes. I got shots of Mom handing cash to the drivers. I got shots of Dad loading cages, treating living creatures like luggage. I got audio of them discussing bribes for the local inspector. Finally, the truck was loaded. But thankfully, they didn't take Bella. Mom had said she was going to St. Louis, and this was the Chicago truck. That meant I had a window of time. "All right, lock it up," Dad said. "Let's get home. Angela might come by again tomorrow. We need to play the concerned parents." "She's so exhausting," Mom sighed, walking back to the sedan. "I don't know why she can't just get another dog. She's so dramatic." "She's weak," Dad said. "Unlike us." They got in the car and drove off. The truck followed. I waited in the hayloft for a full hour after they left, just to be sure. My body was stiff, my heart was a block of ice. I climbed down. I went to Bella's cage one last time. "I'm coming back with an army," I whispered to her. "Hold on, baby. Just one more day." I slipped out into the night, leaving the horrors of the barn behind me. But I took the darkness with me. I wasn't the same person who had entered that barn. That Angela was dead. The new Angela was at war. I didn't go home. I drove straight to the police station in the next county over, the one where the barn was located. But as I sat in the parking lot, looking at the footage on my phone, I hesitated. Mom had mentioned bribing an inspector. What if they had the local cops in their pocket too? Small towns could be corrupt. If I reported this to the wrong person, the dogs would disappear, and my parents would be tipped off. I needed someone I could trust. I remembered Detective Miller. He was a client at the bakery I owned. He bought cinnamon rolls every Sunday for his wife. He was retired from the force but worked as a consultant for the state attorney's office. He was a good man. He had a golden retriever named Buster he talked about constantly. I drove to his house. It was 3 a.m. I pounded on his door until the porch light flicked on. Miller opened the door in his bathrobe, a baseball bat in his hand. "Angela. What on earth?" "I need help," I said, holding up my phone. "And I need you to promise me you won't call the local cops until you see this." 10 minutes later, we were sitting at his kitchen table. Miller watched the video in silence. His face went from confusion to shock, and then to a deep, simmering anger. When the video ended, he took a long breath. "Your parents?" "Yes." "And your brother?" "He's the acquirer." "They are the distribution." Miller rubbed his face. "Angela, this is big. This isn't just animal cruelty. This is interstate commerce fraud, racketeering, tax evasion. If they are moving dogs across state lines, that's federal." "I want to go back and get Bella," I said. "Now. Tonight." Miller shook his head. "If you go back now, you might save Bella, but you'll tip them off. They'll clear out that barn in hours. They'll kill the sick dogs, move the healthy ones, and burn the records. We'll get them on a misdemeanor, maybe. They'll be out on bail in a day and back in business in a month. So I leave her there." My voice cracked. "You leave her there for 24 hours, Miller said firmly. "I can get a federal warrant by tomorrow morning. I can get a SWAT team. We can take down the whole network. But you have to keep them calm. You have to make them think they are safe." "They think I'm suspicious," I said. "I confronted them yesterday." "Then you have to fix it," Miller said. "You have to go to them and apologize. Make them believe you've moved on." It was the hardest thing I had ever had to do. At 9 a.m., I showered, put on makeup to hide the dark circles, and drove to my parents' house. My stomach twisted as I walked up the driveway. I saw the blue truck parked on the side, the vehicle of my nightmares. I knocked. Dad opened the door. He looked tired but smug. "Well, look who it is," he sneered. "Come to accuse us of kidnapping the president next." I forced my facial muscles into a mask of submission. I slumped my shoulders. I looked at the ground. I came to apologize, Dad." He blinked, surprised. "Oh? I haven't slept," I lied. "I've been crazy with grief. I know I sounded insane yesterday. I miss her so much, and I needed someone to blame." Mom appeared in the hallway, wearing her bathrobe, looking like the picture of domestic innocence. "Is that Angela?" "She's apologizing," Dad said, opening the door wider. I walked in. The house smelled of bacon and coffee. It was sickeningly normal. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said, fighting the urge to vomit. "You were right. Bella probably just ran away. I shouldn't have lashed out at Brandon. I was just stressed." Mom smiled, that tight, superior smile. "Well, it takes a big person to admit they're wrong. We were very worried about your mental state, Angela." "I know," I said. "I'm going to let it go. I'm going to take down the flyers today. I need to focus on the bakery." "That's sensible," Dad said, clapping a heavy hand on my shoulder, the same hand I'd seen throwing crates last night. "You can't let a dog ruin your life. Why don't you stay for breakfast?" "I can't," I said. "I have a lot of work to do." "But are we okay? Are we still family?" "Of course," Mom said, walking over and hugging me. She smelled of expensive perfume, masking the scent of the barn that I knew must still linger on her skin. "We forgive you, honey." Just don't let your emotions control you. I won't, I whispered against her shoulder. Never again. I walked out of that house with my soul feeling dirty, but my resolve harder than diamond. They bought it. They thought I was the weak, emotional daughter they had trained me to be. They had no idea that I was the one holding the match. I met Detective Miller at a diner an hour later. They bought it, I said, sliding into the booth. They think I've given up. Good, Miller said. I've been in touch with the FBI. They are interested. But they want a financial link. The video shows them moving dogs, but if we want to hit them with RICO charges and seize their assets, we need to prove where the money is going. Mom handles the books, I said. I heard her talking about it. She keeps a ledger. Is it physical or digital? Digital. She had a laptop in the car. But she also keeps a desktop in her home office. She calls it her charity work. Charity? Yeah. The St. Francis Fund for Wayward Animals. It's a 501(c)(3). They use it to write off taxes. Miller whistled. Classic money laundering. If we can get that ledger, we can prove the charity is a front. I can get it, I said. Miller frowned. Angela, no. It's too dangerous to go back in there. I don't have to break in. I'm family again, remember? Sunday dinner is tomorrow. But I can go back today. I'll tell Mom I want to help her with her computer. She's always complaining about the Wi-Fi. Miller hesitated. If they catch you snooping. They won't. They think I'm an idiot. I went back to my parents' house that afternoon. I brought a box of pastries from my bakery as a peace offering. These are for Brandon, I said to Mom, who was sitting in the kitchen. Is he here? He's out showing a house, she lied. He was probably moving dogs. But that's sweet of you, Angela. Hey, Mom, while I'm here, you said the printer wasn't working last week. Want me to look at it? I have some time. Mom's eyes lit up. She was tech illiterate and refused to learn. Oh, would you? It's been blinking red for days. It's in the office. I walked into the home office. It was a shrine to their ego, plaques, photos of them at galas, and framed thank you letters from their fake charity. I sat at the desk. I fixed the printer, it was just out of paper, in 10 seconds. Then I turned to the computer. It was password protected. I tried Brandon 1. No. I tried money. No. I tried the name of their first dog, Sparky. Bingo. I opened the File Explorer. I ignored the folders labeled recipes and vacation photos. I searched for .xls files. One file stood out, sff_master_ledger_2024.xlsx. I opened it. It was a masterpiece of fraud. Column A, adoption fees. Column B, medical expenses. Column C, hidden black market sales. I scrolled down. The numbers were staggering. French Bulldog Blue Merle sold, $8,000. Tibetan Mastiff sold, $15,000. And there at the very bottom, dated yesterday, Cavalier King Charles Tricolor Allocation, St. Louis Breeding Program. Potential revenue, $45,000 over 3 years. I felt sick seeing Bella's life reduced to a revenue projection. But I forced myself to focus. I inserted a USB drive I'd hidden in my sleeve. I dragged the file over. The progress bar crawled. 10%. 30%. Angela. Mom's voice came from the hallway. Are you hungry? I'm making sandwiches. Just a second, Mom. The printer is running a diagnostic. I called back, my heart hammering against my ribs. 60%. I heard her footsteps approaching. It shouldn't take this long just to fix a paper jam. 80%. The doorknob turned. 90%. 100%. I yanked the USB drive out and shoved it into my bra just as the door opened. Mom stood there, holding a plate of tuna sandwiches. She looked at me, then at the computer screen. I had minimized the spreadsheet just in time, leaving the printer settings window open. All fixed, I said, forcing a bright smile. It was a driver error. Typical Windows Update stuff. Mom narrowed her eyes slightly. She scanned the desk. She scanned my face. You look flushed, she said. It's warm in here, I said. Did you turn the heat up? She stared at me for a beat too long. Then, she smiled. Must be. Come eat. Your father will be home soon. I ate the sandwich. It tasted like ash. But I had the USB drive pressing against my skin. I had the receipts. I had the gun that would smoke them out. I delivered the USB drive to Miller that evening. By morning, the FBI was involved. This is it, Miller said, his eyes gleaming as he looked at the data. They have offshore accounts. They're wiring money to a shell company in the Caymans. This is millions of dollars, Angela. When do we strike? I asked. The FBI wants to do it when all the key players are in one room. They want Brandon, your parents, and their main buyers. Well, you're in luck, I said, pulling a crumpled invitation out of my purse. I had found it on my parents' desk yesterday. It was for a gala. The Golden Leash Gala. Hosted by the St. Francis Fund. It's tonight, I said. At the country club. Brandon is being honored as Philanthropist of the Year. My parents will be there. And I bet their high-end clients will be there too. Miller grinned. A party? I love parties. I have to go, I said. I have to be there. It's dangerous, Miller warned. Once the raid starts, it's going to be chaos. I need to look them in the eye, I said. And besides, I have a little surprise for their presentation. I spent the afternoon preparing. I put on my best dress, a red one, the color of blood and power. I did my hair. I put on lipstick. I looked in the mirror. I didn't look like the sad, divorced dog lady anymore. I looked like Nemesis. I drove to the country club. The parking lot was full of luxury cars. I saw my dad's sedan, freshly waxed. I saw Brandon's leased Porsche. I walked into the ballroom. It was disgusting. There were ice sculptures of dogs. There were people in tuxedos drinking champagne, talking about how much they loved animals, while donating money to a family that tortured them. Brandon was at the front of the room, surrounded by admirers. He was wearing the Rolex. He saw me and waved, a smug grin on his face. Angela. You made it. He walked over, smelling of expensive scotch. Glad you decided to stop moping. I wouldn't miss your big night, Brandon, I said, smiling. Mom and Dad must be so proud. Oh, they are, he beamed. We're expanding, Ong. Big things coming. Maybe if you're nice, I can get you a job. We need someone to clean the kennels. He laughed. I laughed with him. Actually, I said, I have a gift for you. I spoke to the AV guy. I put together a little slideshow of your charity work. Just to show everyone how hard you work. Brandon's ego swelled. Really? That's actually decent of you, sis. Thanks. Don't thank me yet, I said. I walked over to my parents. They were holding court at table 1. Angela, Mom said, looking me up and down. That dress is a bit aggressive, isn't it? I wanted to make an impression, I said. The lights dimmed. The gala was starting. I sat at my table, clutching my purse. Inside was my phone, connected to the FBI team waiting in the vans outside. The MC took the stage. And now, to celebrate our Philanthropist of the Year, Mr. Brandon Miller, his sister Angela has prepared a special tribute. Applause. Brandon stood up, waving to the crowd, soaking in the adoration. I stood up too. I walked to the side of the stage where the laptop was connected to the projector. I looked at Brandon. I looked at my parents. They were smiling. They thought they had won. They thought they owned the world. I hit the spacebar. The screen didn't show photos of happy puppies or Brandon shaking hands. The giant screen behind the stage lit up with the shaky, grainy footage from inside the barn. The sound of whimpering dogs filled the ballroom, amplified by the massive speakers. The crowd gasped. Then, the camera panned. And there, 10 feet tall on the screen, was my mother, shouting orders. And my father, throwing a crate. We can get 3 liters out of her before she crashes. Mom's voice boomed through the hall. The silence in the room was shattered. I looked at Brandon. His face had gone white. He looked at the screen, then at me. I smiled. A real smile. Enjoy the show, I whispered. And then, the doors burst open. Federal agents. Nobody move. The ballroom dissolved into pandemonium. It wasn't the kind of chaotic noise you hear in movies, it was a strange, layered symphony of shock. First, there was the gasp, a collective intake of breath from 300 wealthy donors, as the giant screen behind Brandon continued to play the footage of my mother discussing the lifespan of a breeding dog like she was talking about the battery life of a used car. Then came the murmurs, rising like a tide, confused and angry. And finally, the sound of heavy boots hitting the polished marble floor. Federal agents. Nobody move. The shout ricocheted off the crystal chandeliers. The doors on all sides of the ballroom burst open, and uniformed agents streamed in, their vests emblazoned with FBI in bold yellow letters that seemed to burn into the retina. I stood by the AV table, my hand still resting near the laptop, my heart pounding a rhythm against my ribs that felt like a war drum. I watched Brandon. The Philanthropist of the Year award was still in his hand. He looked at the agents, then at the screen where his own face was currently shown loading crates into a truck, and then he looked at me. The smugness was gone. The arrogance that had defined his entire life, the shield of being the golden child, evaporated in a split second. In its place was the raw, naked terror of a coward. He dropped the award. It hit the floor with a heavy, dull thud, cracking the crystal base. He actually took a step back, looking toward the emergency exit behind the stage, his eyes darting like a trapped rat. Brandon Miller. An agent with a bullhorn shouted. Get down on the ground. Now. Brandon didn't get down. He froze, his hands twitching. It was pathetic. For years, I had been intimidated by him. I had let this man dictate my self-worth. Watching him tremble in his tuxedo, I realized he had never been strong. He had just been protected. My gaze shifted to table 1. My parents. If Brandon's reaction was fear, theirs was pure, unadulterated indignation. My father, Robert, was standing up, his face a mottled purple rage. He wasn't looking at the police, he was looking at me. His eyes were bulging, his mouth moving in a scream I couldn't hear over the commotion. He looked like he wanted to jump across the tables and strangle me. My mother, Linda, remained seated. She was clutching her pearl necklace, her back rigid. She was looking around at her friends, the mayor's wife, the bank president, with a look of desperate denial, mouthing, "It's a mistake, it's a deep fake, she's crazy." She was trying to gaslight an entire room of witnesses while federal agents closed in. Robert and Linda Miller, you are under arrest for racketeering, animal cruelty, and wire fraud, an agent announced, reaching their table. Do not touch me, my mother shrieked. Her voice, usually so controlled and sugary sweet, cracked into a shrill harpy screech. Do you know who we are? We are the pillars of this community. My daughter is mentally unstable. She hacked the system. That video is AI. Turn around, ma'am, the agent said, unbothered, spinning her around. The sound of the handcuffs ratcheting shut was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. It was sharper than the clinking of champagne glasses. It was the sound of a heavy door slamming shut on 34 years of manipulation. I walked slowly from the side of the stage toward the center of the room. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I wanted them to see me. 2 agents had tackled Brandon when he tried to bolt for the side door. They hauled him up, his tuxedo jacket torn at the shoulder, his hair wild. As they dragged him past me, he lunged, spitting at my feet. You bitch, he screamed, his face contorted. You ruined everything. You jealous, miserable bitch. I'll kill you. I didn't flinch. I looked him dead in the eye. You sold my dog for a watch, Brandon. You didn't think I'd find out. You forgot the one thing you always mocked me for. What? He spat, struggling against the agents. I pay attention to the details. They shoved him forward. Then came my parents. My father was practically being carried, his legs dragging, muttering curses about ungrateful children, and writing me out of the will. The irony was almost funny. There would be no will. There would be no inheritance. The government was going to take everything. My mother stopped when she saw me. The agent holding her arm paused for a second. Angela, she hissed, her voice dropping to that cold, venomous whisper she used when no one else was around. How could you? We gave you life. We are your family. No, I said, my voice steady, loud enough for the people nearby to hear. You aren't my family. You're my biological donors. My family is currently in a cage in Oakhaven because you wanted a new Mercedes. You will rot in hell for this, she spat. You will die alone. Maybe, I shrugged. But tonight, I'm sleeping in my own bed. And you're sleeping in a cell. Get her out of here, the agent said, pushing her forward. As they were led away, the ballroom was deathly silent. The elite of the town, the people who had eaten at my parents' table and praised their charity, stared at me. Some looked horrified, some looked ashamed. A woman I recognized, a real estate broker who worked with Brandon, walked up to me. She looked at the screen, where the video had looped back to the image of the suffering dogs, then at me. Is it true? She whispered. The puppy mill. Every word, I said. And the money you donated? It's in the Cayman Islands. She turned pale and brought a hand to her mouth. Detective Miller appeared at my elbow. He wasn't in uniform, he was wearing a suit, looking like the Grim Reaper of Justice. He put a hand on my shoulder. You did good, kid, he said quietly. You held it together. Is it over? I asked, feeling my knees start to tremble now that the adrenaline was fading. The arrest is over, Miller said. But the night isn't. We have the warrant for the barn. The tactical team is rolling out now. You coming? I looked at the empty doorway where my family had just been dragged out. I felt a strange emptiness. I expected to feel triumphant like in the movies. Instead, I just felt heavy. The grief for the childhood I never had, for the love I had chased for decades that never actually existed, hit me all at once. But then, I thought of Bella. I'm driving, I said. Miller smiled. Let's go get your girl. The drive to Oakhaven was different this time. I wasn't alone. I was in the passenger seat of Detective Miller's unmarked car, leading a convoy of animal control vans, state trooper cruisers, and a mobile veterinary unit. The flashing lights painted the trees in rhythmic strokes of blue and red. Miller's radio was buzzing with chatter from the station. You want to know what's happening in the interrogation rooms? Miller asked, glancing at me. I don't know, I said. Do I? It might make you feel better. Or worse. Depends on how much faith you still had in them. I have zero faith, I said. Tell me. Miller turned up the volume on the scanner slightly. So they separated them immediately. Standard procedure. Prisoner's dilemma. The first one to talk gets the deal. Usually, with families, there's a period of silence. They try to protect each other. He paused, shaking his head. Not your folks. They didn't even last 10 minutes. Who cracked? All of them. Simultaneously. I closed my eyes, resting my head against the cool window. Of course they did. Brandon started crying the second they took his handcuffs off, Miller recounted, his voice devoid of pity. He's claiming he was just a victim. He says your father forced him to do it. He claims he owes gambling debts to dangerous people, and your dad threatened to cut him off if he didn't run the transport. He's throwing your dad under the bus to save his own skin. He's 38 years old, I murmured. He's still blaming Daddy. And your father? Miller chuckled darkly. He's claiming he's senile. He's actually trying to plead incompetence. He says your mother is the mastermind, the Lady Macbeth. He says she controls the finances, she sets the prices, she organizes the breeding schedule. He claims he just drives the truck because he's afraid of her. He's not wrong about her being the mastermind, I said. But he enjoyed it. I saw him kicking the cages, Miller. He wasn't afraid. He was cruel. We know, Miller said. We have your video. But here's the kicker. Your mother. My stomach tightened. What did she say? She didn't blame them, Miller said. She blamed you. I opened my eyes. Me? She's telling the feds that the whole operation was yours. She claims the shell company is in your name, which we know is a lie, but she's trying to muddy the waters. She says you were the vet tech, so you had the medical knowledge. She says they were just trying to help you out of financial trouble after your divorce. I let out a harsh, dry laugh. It rattled in my chest. She's trying to frame me. Even now. It's a desperate Hail Mary, Miller assured me. The digital footprint Sarah found proves she's lying. The bank accounts are linked to her biometrics. The IP addresses are from her house. But it shows you who she is, Angela. Even when the ship is sinking, she's trying to stand on your head to keep breathing. It was the final nail in the coffin. Somewhere deep down, a tiny, foolish part of me had hoped that maybe, just maybe, my mother did love me in some twisted way. That maybe she would try to keep me out of it. But no. To Linda Miller, I wasn't a daughter. I was a resource. I was a scapegoat. I was an object to be used until it broke and then discarded. They deserve everything coming to them, I said, my voice hardening. How much time are they looking at? With the federal charges. Racketeering. Interstate commerce violations. Animal cruelty counts in the hundreds. Miller tapped the steering wheel. Brandon will probably get 10 to 15. Your parents at their age, it's a life sentence. They'll die in prison. I looked out at the passing darkness. I thought about the holidays I would spend alone. I thought about the fact that I was now technically an orphan. But then I thought about the corgi in the incinerator room. I thought about Bella shaking in her crate. Good, I said. We turned onto the gravel road leading to Green Acres. The convoy slowed down. We're here, Miller said. Stay in the car until I give the clear. We don't know if they have hired security. I watched as the SWAT team moved in. They cut the lock on the gate, the same gate I had typed the code into just 24 hours ago. They swarmed the property. There was no security. Just the wind and the smell of ammonia. After 5 minutes, Miller waved me over. It's clear. The vet team is going in. You ready? I stepped out of the car. The air was cold, but my skin felt hot. I walked toward the barn doors, which were now thrown wide open, light pouring out into the night. It was time to end this. Entering the barn with the lights fully on was a different kind of horror than seeing it in the dark. In the shadows, your imagination fills in the gaps. In the harsh glare of the floodlights set up by the police, there was nowhere for the misery to hide. The smell was a physical wall, ammonia, rot, and fear. The vet teams were already moving down the aisles, wearing hazmat suits and masks, tagging cages. The sound was deafening now. The dogs knew something was happening. The barking was frantic, desperate. I didn't wait for permission. I ran. I ran past the rows of Frenchies with infected eyes. I ran past the golden retrievers with matted coats. I ran straight to the back, to the bottom row, to the specific cage that had been burned into my nightmares for the last day. Bella. I screamed, my voice breaking. She was there. She was pressed so far back into the corner of the wire cage that she looked like a fur ball. She wasn't moving. My heart stopped. No. No, please God, no. I dropped to my knees in the filth. Bella. Baby, it's me. It's Mom. Her ear twitched. Slowly, painfully, she lifted her head. Her big, brown spaniel eyes met mine. They were dull, glazed with terror and dehydration, but there was a flicker of recognition. She let out a tiny, high-pitched whimper. I'm here, I sobbed, fumbling with the latch. I told you I'd come back. I promised. An officer stepped up behind me with a pair of bolt cutters. Stand back, ma'am. Let me get that. I scrambled back. Snip. The padlock fell to the concrete. I threw the door open. I didn't care about the filth. I didn't care about the smell. I reached in and scooped her up. She was light. Too light. She felt fragile, like a bird. But the moment she was in my arms, she buried her face in my neck. She started shaking, violent, whole-body tremors. I felt her wet tongue frantically licking the salt from my tears on my cheek. I've got you, I whispered into her matted fur, rocking back and forth on the floor of the barn. I've got you. Nobody is ever going to hurt you again. You're never leaving me again. I sat there for a long time, just holding her, while the chaos of the rescue swirled around me. I watched as the vets carried out dog after dog. Some were walking. Some had to be carried on stretchers. I saw a vet tech carry out a small bundle wrapped in a towel, the corgi my mother had ordered to the incinerator. The tech looked grim. I caught his eye. Is he? I asked. The tech shook his head. He's barely hanging on. But he's alive. We're getting him on fluids right now. He's a fighter. I held Bella tighter. He's a fighter. I looked around the barn one last time. This place, this monument to my family's greed, was being dismantled piece by piece. Every cage opened was a victory. Every dog carried out was a slap in the face to my mother and father. Miller walked up to me. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were kind. The site is secured, Angela. We've counted 184 dogs. Plus the records office in the back is a gold mine. We found passports, forged pedigree papers, everything. Did you find the incinerator room? I asked, dreading the answer. Miller's face darkened. He nodded once. Yeah. Forensics is in there now. It's not good. Your parents are going to face homicide charges for this, effectively. In the eyes of the law, it's property destruction, but the judge won't see it that way. We found remains. I shuddered. I buried my face in Bella's neck again, breathing in her scent. Under the dirt, she still smelled like my dog. My family. Take her home, Angela, Miller said softly. Go home. We've got it from here. Walking out of that barn was like walking out of a tomb, and into the first day of spring. The air outside was crisp and clean. The stars were out. I carried Bella to my car. I didn't put her in the back seat. I put her in the passenger seat, wrapped in my own jacket. I turned on the heater. As I drove away, seeing the flashing lights fade in the rearview mirror, I realized something. I had lost my mother, my father, and my brother tonight. The family tree had been chopped down at the roots. But looking at Bella, who was finally sleeping peacefully, her head resting on my center console, I felt fuller than I had in years. I had lost a toxic family. But I had saved the only family that mattered. 1 year later. The gavel came down with a sound that echoed through the courtroom, final and absolute. On the charges of racketeering, wire fraud, and aggravated animal cruelty, I sentenced Linda Miller and Robert Miller to 25 years in federal prison, without the possibility of parole. The judge looked over his glasses at my parents. They looked small now. The year in county jail awaiting trial had stripped them of their Botox, their hair dye, and their arrogance. They looked like two gray, shriveled apples. They didn't look at me. They stared at the table, defeated. Brandon Miller, the judge continued. You are sentenced to 12 years. Brandon sobbed. Loudly. It was embarrassing, but I felt nothing. No pity. No anger. Just indifference. He was a stranger to me now. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright sunlight. Detective Miller, now retired for real, was waiting for me. It's done, he said. It's done, I agreed. You okay? I'm better than okay, I smiled. I'm free. I drove home. Not to the small house I used to live in. I had sold that place. It held too many memories of Brandon sleeping on the couch, and my parents criticizing my life choices. I drove to a property on the edge of town. A big property with 5 acres of land. A wooden sign hung over the gate, the Bella Foundation, Rescue and Rehabilitation Center. After the story went viral, thanks to the live stream at the gala, donations had poured in from all over the world. People were outraged. They wanted to help. The money my parents had stolen and hidden in the Caymans was seized by the government, and a significant portion of it was awarded to the victims as restitution. Since I was the whistleblower and technically a victim of their fraud, I received a settlement. I didn't keep a dime for myself. I used every cent of their blood money to build this place. I parked the truck and walked toward the main play yard. The sound of barking greeted me. But this wasn't the sad, desperate barking of the barn. This was happy barking. Playful barking. I opened the gate and instantly I was swarmed. A pack of dogs, some missing legs, some with scars, but all with wagging tails, surrounded me. And leading the pack, bounding through the grass with her ears flapping in the wind, was Bella. She was healthy. Her coat was shiny and thick. Her eyes were bright. You would never know she had spent 24 hours in hell. I knelt down and she tackled me, licking my face. Hey, girl. Hey. I laughed, the sound bubbling up from my chest, light and unburdened. I sat there in the grass, surrounded by the souls I had saved. The corgi from the incinerator room, now named Phoenix, waddled over and sat in my lap. He had survived. He was thriving. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a letter, forwarded from the prison. The return address said Linda Miller. I looked at the envelope. I could imagine what was inside. More guilt trips. More manipulation. Maybe a plea for money for the commissary. Or maybe a fake apology, a we did the best we could narrative. I didn't open it. I took a lighter out of my pocket. I held the flame to the corner of the envelope. I watched the paper curl and blacken, the fire consuming the name Linda Miller until it was nothing but ash blowing away in the wind. I didn't need their words anymore. I didn't need their approval. I looked at the camera, talking to the millions of people who had followed this journey. They used to tell me I was weak, I said, stroking Bella's head. They told me I was too sensitive. They told me dogs didn't matter. But they were wrong. Empathy isn't a weakness. It's a superpower. It's the thing that saved Bella. It's the thing that saved me. I stood up, dusting the grass off my jeans. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the sanctuary. If you are in a situation where people are using you, hurting you, or telling you that your feelings don't matter, listen to me. You have the power to stop them. You have the power to walk away. And sometimes, I grinned, looking at the happy dogs running in the field, you have the power to burn their whole kingdom down, and build something beautiful from the ashes. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for helping me save them. I'm Angela, and this is finally my happily ever after. Thank you for listening to the end of this journey. I am truly grateful for you. Comment the letter A below so I know you are one of the special ones who stuck with me through the darkness to find the light. If you have any feelings you want to share about this story, write them down. And please, click on the next video on the channel to hear more stories of justice and survival. We are just getting started.